Bryce Miller handled his biggest test yet pretty well, but the Mariners' bats were more or less a no-show, and the bullpen suffered a rare blow-up. Our takeaways from the loss in Atlanta coming up here on the Locked On Mariners postgame show. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Friday, May 19th, 2023. This is Trident and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners postgame show, brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB. When you enter promo code LockedOnMLB, they'll throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. Thank you so much for making us your first listen after the game. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon by scanning the QR code that's right above my head. The link, as well as our social accounts, is also in the description of this episode. 6-2, the final score from Atlanta. Braves take game one of the series. At one point, the Mariners had a 2-1 lead and were out hitting the Braves 8-3, but things changed rather quickly in the bottom halves of the 7th and the 8th. 5 unanswered runs from Atlanta, and that's your ball game. Mariners fall to 22-24 on the year. Bryce Miller tonight, 6 1/3 innings pitched, 4 strikeouts, 1 walk, 4 hits on 9 hard-hit balls. He left this game with a 1-run lead, but was on the hook for the 2 runs allowed to score by Trevor Gott in the bottom of the 7th. Colby, what did you think of Miller's outing tonight?
I thought it was pretty good. Every outing has to be measured against your opponent. So was he as dominant as he was against Oakland? No. Is Atlanta a lot better than Oakland? Yes. And after the first, 2 batters, you're sitting here thinking like, well, this is going to be a long night, because we had talked about this matchup before. Miller's high spin rate fastball is great, but it's the pitch that Atlanta crushes the most. Nobody is better at hitting those high spin rate fastballs than Atlanta, and the first 2 hitters, and really the entire first inning, just absolute mashed ball after mash ball after mash ball. Not 5 of the 9 hard hit balls came in the first inning. What did Miller do? How did he counterpunch? He just threw more fastballs. Like, it was really incredible. We sat here and we talked about, hey, he's going to have to use the slider. He's going to have to use the curveball more against Atlanta. They really do hit the fastball well. And Bryce Miller just said, dude, screw you. I'm going to do what I do best, and they have to deal with me. And that's what he did for, 6 innings, 6 1/3, and 102 pitches, 80 fastballs. Like, that's insane. It was the only pitch he got a whiff on. And to Atlanta's credit, he only got 11 whiffs on 80 fastballs. So yeah, Atlanta was able to put the ball in play against him. Like you mentioned, only the 4 strikeouts. They did have some hard hit balls, but more than half of those came in the first inning. And for the next 5, Miller really cruised. I think he at one point retired 18 of 19. And it was just dominating with the fastball, is really what it was. 80 fastballs, 9 sliders, 8 curveballs, 5 changeups. It was just a really aggressive Bryce Miller, and I don't even think he had his best fastball tonight in terms of velocity, and I don't think he had his best fastball command. And he still kind of found a way to fight through a really good lineup. That's probably the deepest lineup you're going to see this year, is this Atlanta team. And there's a reason why they're heavy World Series favorites. But he came out on top, not record wise, but he came out of the game with a lead, and he did everything he could to give the Mariners a really good shot to win this game. And again, that's despite, doing it in the complete opposite way we thought that maybe he would have to against this really good Atlanta lineup.
And a tip of the cap to you, because last week on the show, I had theorized that maybe he would experiment a little in that Detroit start, which he actually ended up doing, throwing more breaking balls. He threw 42 non-fastballs in that start. I was thinking, all right, that's a little preview of what we're probably going to see in Atlanta. But as you mentioned, it was all fastball tonight. And you said on the show when I'm, craft theory that, no, I just want to see his best against their best. And there you go. That was the game plan tonight for Miller. And it mostly worked. Now, I want to ask you about the decision from Scott Servais to both bring Miller out in the 7th inning and leave him out there to go over 100 pitches. Did you like the decision? Didn't like it? What'd you think?
I don't like the decision to put him back out there. He's a young guy who just, 85 pitches through 6. That's not bad. But he's a young guy who is, not having his best command at the time. He's on a roll, so I understand that aspect. But what I also don't like is I also don't like the game plan as a whole, right? Like, to me, if Trevor Gott's ready to go, you just start him in the 7th, and that's the route you want Trevor Gott pitching. You don't want to bring a guy like Trevor Gott in with runners on base, particularly the tie and run. So, like, to me, like, the plan there was just disconnected. If you're going to put Miller out there in the 7th, fine, you better have one of your high leverage arms coming up behind him, because we know how potent this lineup is, and you're going to need high leverage, not your middle relievers. So, to me, if you start the inning with Gott, fine, whatever. But if you're going to go with Miller, you have to be willing to have Topa up. You have to be willing to use Paul Sewald, or you have to trust Matt Brash in that situation. And clearly Scott does not. We saw that again later in the inning. He went to Topa instead of Brash when he could really use a strikeout. So I didn't love the decision to put Miller back out there. And I dislike the decision even more to kind of have Topa be, or have Gott be the next guy up no matter what. To me, once you make that decision that we're going to put Miller out there and he's either going to finish the inning or we're going to have guys on base when we go to our pen, to me, if you make that decision, fine, you have to follow that up by having one of your best high leverage relievers out there, not your middle guy. And right now, Scott doesn't feel good about his high leverage options. That's pretty obvious, because in that situation, Brash would be in the game. Like, if he truly trusted Matt Brash right now, Brash would be the guy you would call in after Miller, because you need a strikeout in that situation. Doesn't trust Matt Brash. Who can blame him? It just, to me, the whole idea of Scott's 7th, like his plan in the 7th inning, just made absolutely no sense. It started with sending Miller back out there, but fine. Once you make that decision, okay, make the next smart decision behind it to protect yourself. And he didn't do that either. So it was just a really frustrating 7th inning from Scott, because I didn't like the initial decision, and then I didn't like the second decision that he made. And it's kind of a bummer, because at the end of the day, JP makes a decent throw that we might be talking about a Mariners 2-1 grinded out win. But we're not, and now we're talking about Scott.
Yeah, that's exactly the point that I was about to make, is that, hey, in all fairness, if JP doesn't pull Ty France off the bag there and they convert that double play, Miller may very well get through that 7th inning clean, and we might be having a very different conversation on this show right now. But he didn't. And that's the reality of things. And the Mariners lose tonight by a score of 6-2. We're going to talk more about those 7th and 8th innings for the Mariners bullpen in just a moment. But real quick, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by So Rare. Our new sponsor, So Rare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace, transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 Major League Baseball teams. And unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, So Rare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with player cards against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards, and there's no cost to play. Plus, the more you win, the more you advance, collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next level competitions and rewards. So Rare MLB game weeks happen twice weekly and span a 3 to 4 day cycle, and at the end of game week, So Rare MLB managers who rank at or near the top of their leaderboards win a variety of rewards, which can include So Rare scarcity cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, and VIP experiences like meeting stars. Prizes may vary depending on the competition. Head to sorare.com/lockedon. That's spelled SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards. Set your lineup and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners postgame show. Thank you for making us your first listen after the Mariners 6-2 loss to the Braves. If you're unable to watch the rest of the series on TV, you can catch the games on the SiriusXM app. That's SXM on the Mariners' hometown broadcasts. Colby, so yeah, I know you don't like the decision to go to Gott. I, for one, would have preferred to see Justin Topa in that situation. Obviously, Topa did come in the eighth of this inning and eighth of this game, rather, and didn't have a good time either. He got knocked a bit. Overall, though, what do you make of those 2 innings for the Mariners bullpen?
Yeah, the bullpen's held up really well over the first 6, almost 7 weeks of the regular season, and it just really hasn't held up its end the last 3 or 4 days. It was Gabe Spire had a rough outing a few nights ago. Paul Sewald had a rough outing a few nights ago. We know about Brash's issues right now, and tonight it was Topa's turn, and those are kind of the 4 guys that you've kind of turned into your high leverage options, and they all kind of blown up in the last 3 or 4 days. So it's a bummer that it's happened all in a row like this. So yeah, but I also think that speaks to just this simple fact that the Mariners need a high leverage arm, and right now they're missing their best one in Andres Munoz. And you can only push guys past their like expected roles so much before it catches up to you. At some point, bullpen guys are going to struggle again. It's pretty unusual for all 4 of your like high leverage guys to all have a bad outing in the same week, but it's going to happen at some point this year. It just so happened to happen in the last few days in a row. So it's a bummer. But overall, I think you still have to trust these guys for the most part. They've been really good all year. But I do think they need help. And I don't think that means that you have to go out and, go get somebody from the outside. I think you just need help from the inside. And one good way to help that is to just DFA Chris Flexen already, who's worthless on this ball club, and go get Prolander Baroa, who's tearing it up in Double-A right now, and forget the whole, well, he hasn't gone back-to-back yet. So what? Your bullpen needs help. You need that leverage arm that you can put in the 7th inning who can miss bats. You need Matt Brash, but you obviously do not trust Matt Brash. So you have to go get somebody else who can do what Brash can do. That's Baroa. So to me, right now, you're essentially a team that's built around having an 8-man bullpen, and you're choosing to have 7. Why? To save a little bit of money or to hedge your bet against Marco Gonzalez? It just doesn't make sense. So the bullpen right now it's been a rough couple days. Fine, whatever. I still think that they're going to bounce back, and obviously once they get Andres Munoz back, if they indeed do, that'll be a huge help, because I think once Munoz is back, Munoz is probably pitching in that 7th, or Sewald's coming in, because you have Munoz in the back end if you need another high leverage spot. So we'll see. Right. Munoz isn't even like on a rehab stint yet, so we can't assume he's coming back anytime soon. But Baroa is right there. He's ready. He's throwing plenty of strikes out of the relief role. The stuff is more than good enough. And you need kind of a fresh arm right now. So I know you want to get him in back-to-back games. I know you want him to pitch 3 times in 4 days before you call him up. Tough break. Sometimes things don't go your way. And the reason we know that is that Bryce Miller is getting starts right now because Robbie Ray, unfortunately, suffered an elbow injury. Sometimes things don't go your way. You have to pivot. And to me, not having Baroa in this bullpen right now is a huge mistake, especially if you're not going to trust Matt Brash, which again, I don't blame Scott for not doing it, but you need that guy in your bullpen.
Well, and Colby, if you don't trust Matt Brash, send him down to Tacoma, let him work on things without forcing him into high leverage situations to do that. Mm-hmm. And there's your move right there for Baroa. If you don't want to DFA Chris Flexen for God knows what reason, or if you don't want to, swap out Taylor Saucedo, which I'm not crying over if they did. Like,
Saucedo's been pretty good, but yeah,
he's been fine. He's been fine. Had a little bit of a hiccup tonight, but overall been fine. So
fine.
I just still though, if you again going back to Brash though, if you don't trust him, send him down.
Yep.
There's because really like more often than not, the only opportunities that you're going to have to put Brash into a game to allow him to figure things out at the major league level is when the game matters. Hopefully you're not in too many situations where you're getting blown out. Hopefully it's the opposite end of things there where you're blowing a team out, but still you're more likely than not going to find yourself in those situations too often to give Brash those opportunities.
Right. Especially
so just send him down.
Yeah.
Even if it's for 10 days.
Yeah. You're a team that's built to win close games, right? You're going to pitch. You're going to hopefully hit enough home runs. You're going to hopefully have one good inning, and you're going to go to your bullpen to try and close out. Like the formula the Mariners had tonight is the formula they want to play. Now they probably want to score a few more runs, but if you tell the Mariners they're getting into the bottom of the seventh up 2-1, they probably feel pretty good about their odds. But you can't do that when you're a man down. And when you have Chris Flexen out there, who obviously they're not going to use in any meaningful situation, and Matt Brash, who clearly they're not trusting right now, you're down 2 guys in that bullpen, and there are easy fixes to make. You just go get Matt Festa and Prolander Baroa, and keeping Brash up and only using him in like low leverage spots, that's not helping anybody. It's not helping the team. It's not helping Brash because now you can't really dictate when he pitches and when he doesn't. Like, you're not helping anybody right now by having Brash on this roster. You're certainly not helping anybody by having Chris Flexen on this roster, except for I suppose Chris Flexen at this stage. But yeah, I know that there's like an incentive if they wait until June 5th or something like that. Maybe they can keep Flexen in the org down in AAA. Who cares? If you really are desperate to do that, there's still moves you can make. You can send down Brash. You can send down Juan 10. There are moves you can make. You need to put Baroa in this bullpen. And sorry that it didn't work out exactly how you want. Maybe when Munoz comes back, you can send Baroa back down and let him work through some of that stuff. But you need the arm right now that can miss bats in the bullpen, because that's not really Gott's game. That's not really Topa's game. That's not really Sewald's game. That's supposed to be Brash's job. And Brash can't do it right now because you can't trust him to throw enough strikes. So go get Baroa. It's really that simple. You need an arm like that. And again, the bullpen concern right now, it's short term. I'm really not worried. I think Munoz will be back. I think Baroa will be pretty good. I don't think Topa all of a sudden is terrible. I don't think Spire is awful because they've had bad outings. And I think Brash will bounce back to some degree. But you got to help those guys do that by giving them help and allowing them to kind of slide back into roles that they're better suited for. Trevor Gott should always start with a clean inning. He should never be the fireman. That is not who Trevor Gott is. That's not who he's ever been. Trevor Gott is Nick Vincent. You want him starting an inning clean. You want him pitching when it's 4-0. Like, that's who you want Trevor Gott to be. You don't want Trevor Gott to be first and second with 1 out in a 1-run game in the 7th on the road against probably one of the 3 best offenses in all of baseball. That's not an appropriate time to use Trevor Gott.
Right. Even if it's at, or near the bottom of their lineup. It's just not, that wasn't the call, in my opinion.
Not Atlanta's bottom of the lineup.
Yeah. And, BABIP gods kind of shove their middle finger in the face of the Mariners once again. Ozuna's little bloop single.
The frustrating thing about the 7th, botched double play. Well, first of all, Gino boots a ball, whatever. That ball was crushed. Took a weird hop. It was a 1 in a million shot. He didn't make the play. Whatever. You move on. You get the ground ball you want, and you have a shot. Yep. I'm not saying for sure would have gotten him, but it was going to be close. You had a good shot to get Rosario. JP essentially airmails one. Then it comes the walk, and at that point, 2 huge mistakes.
Yep.
And you're just not going to beat Atlanta. Not with how you're playing right now, not with how your offense is going right now. You're not going to beat Atlanta making 2 huge mistakes like that back to back. And it's just a bummer because, Miller gets tagged as giving up 3 runs. He didn't. He gave up 1. He did his job. He was excellent. And he essentially gets tagged with that because you can't assume a double play. So JP doesn't get an error. That's an error on JP Crawford. And that's why earned runs and that's why errors are BS stats. They do not tell you the full story because JP makes a good throw right there. We're probably watching a 2-1 or 2-2 game right now in the 9th. Like, just a bummer. It's a bummer. And by the way, JP also almost sent one into right field to get the force out on Acuna. So,
Yeah.
we've seen JP kind of get a little wild with his throws at times. Tonight, he probably easily could have had 2 throwing errors. So, something to watch
and
tomorrow.
that sucks. And that sucks too, because it also stains a pretty good offensive night for JP.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just disappointing stuff overall.
Yeah.
There in the seventh, and just frustrating to see the Braves play add-on there in the eighth. Wish my favorite baseball team could do that. That'd be cool to be a part of one of those once. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about let's talk about the next 2 games coming up here on the weekend. I don't know if we're going to be doing post-game shows at all on the weekend. Probably depends on if the Mariners win or not, and depends on what the win looks like
good.
as well.
Sure.
Yeah. We'll talk about the 2 pitching matchups coming up and all that in just a moment. But real quick, a reminder: this episode of the Locked On Mariners post-game show is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Look, I hate shopping for summer clothes. I just want to be comfortable no matter if I'm at the ballpark or back at home recording an episode of Locked On M's. Is that too much to ask? Oftentimes, though, I find myself settling for clothes that feel cheap, tight, and restricting and make me sweat in all the wrong places. Gross, I know. But let's stop pretending it doesn't happen to most of us. Thankfully, Bird Dogs has me, and therefore you, covered. Their wide selection of insanely comfortable shorts, joggers, sweatpants, polos, and more have me ready for any occasion this summer throws my way. I mean, who doesn't love stretchy fabric and built-in underwear? It's time to look good, feel good, and play good this summer. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonmlb, and when you enter promo code LockedOnMLB, they'll throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. Because what's even more important than staying comfortable this summer? Staying hydrated. And you can do both with Bird Dogs. Again, that's birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners postgame show. Thank you again for making us your first listen after the Mariners 6-2 loss to the Braves down in Atlanta. You can catch the rest of the series on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. So, next 2 games for the Mariners. They got Logan Gilbert going on the bump tomorrow. That game is on Fox Sports, not on Root Sports. So another nationally televised game for the M's. Down in Atlanta. We don't know who's starting for the Braves. Charlie Morton got his start pushed back a day. Jared Schuster will go on the bump on Sunday for the Braves, but we still don't know who's pitching for Atlanta tomorrow. Colby, do we have any inkling as to who that might be? Who our mystery man is?
No. It sounds like the original plan was to do a bullpen day if the bullpen didn't get 2 taxed tonight. Well, it didn't. So my assumption is that it's going to be a bullpen day. I can see him maybe using McHugh for a couple innings at the start. He has that experience, but no, we haven't heard an announcement yet on who would be the call. So yeah, kind of a mystery.
So missing Morton is good because he definitely has a repertoire that does not align very well for this Mariners offense, to put it lightly. Schuster struggled to start the year. Obviously a young pitcher, former first-round pick back in 2020. He's finally up with the ball club. So we'll see how that goes. And then tomorrow, if it's a bullpen day, I mean, again, this is another series where the pitching matchups favor the Mariners on paper, but again, this is all in theory. It all really falls on the shoulders of this Mariners offense, and this pitching staff though has to show up, because this Braves offense, as we saw tonight, can do a lot of damage. So, what's your feel for the next 2 games, Colby?
I don't feel great. I think for me, you just got to find a way to salvage a game in this series, and kind of get back home and get a big 4-game set against Oakland, and just be a couple games under, try and win that series, and kind of right the ship that way. But it's going to be tough, pitching aside. The Mariners offense still isn't producing right now. Now, I actually thought they looked okay tonight. there were some encouraging signs from a few players tonight, I think is the right way to put it.
Hey, they were running an expected batting average north of 300 for the majority of this game. It wasn't until the ninth that they fell under 300 on that front. So,
right. I mean, you look at it, they had 2, 4, 8 strikeouts tonight. It's not bad. Unfortunately, no walks or one walk, only one walk. Yeah, Kelnick. And, Eugenio 1 for 4, big RBI single, but oof. His other at-bats not good.
3 strikeouts. Yeah, 3 strikeouts.
Yeah, Taylor Trammell, again, continues to kind of be boom or bust, but Julio only had 1 strikeout tonight. It was in his first at-bat, his last 3 at-bats. I thought he looked pretty good. He had a big double, obviously. So that was good to see. Jared Kelnick, 1 for 3 with a was it a double? It was a double, yeah. With a double and a walk. He had a couple big at-bats. And how about Teoscar Hernandez? Just 2 for 3 tonight with an RBI. Struck out once, but whatever. He's going to strike out. He's going to have ugly at-bats. That's part of his game. And when you kind of look at where Castillo or where Teoscar is right now, it's probably time to have the conversation about moving him up in the lineup. Back
Absolutely.
up. Yeah. I mean, over his last, 11 games here, he's sitting 279. That's not great, but considering what you're getting right now from Eugenio Suarez and what you're getting right now from Jared Kelnick, who's been okay, but you're starting to see teams figure out how to pitch to him. I think it's probably time to jump Teo up back into at least 5, 6, somewhere in that range. Maybe enough to push Jared down. But in his last 2 weeks, 14 games, right? Teoscar's hitting 309, 350, 436. Yes, he's
honestly,
out.
I think you should swap Teo and Gino right now in the lineup.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, especially if Gino's not going to hit for power consistently right now.
Yeah,
what's the point of it? Yeah, he shouldn't be hitting in the top 5 of this lineup right now.
I'd like to see Colton Wong get a DH day here. I'm not impressed with Taylor Trammell really at all. There's just a lot of non-competitive at-bats right now. I know Pollock's been bad. I know Wong has struggled, but they at least have a track record. So there are some tweaks I would make to the offense. But overall tonight, I think it was okay. But obviously you needed to be a lot better against Bryce Elder. But Elder had pretty good stuff tonight, but he did find a way to get 7 hits off of him.
He's had a good year.
Yeah, but you did get 7 hits off of him tonight, but unfortunately you can only really get the 2 runs against him. That's not a good ratio. So, how different this game might have been if Cal Raleigh's 7th inning charge would have been 2 feet higher. Then Acuna doesn't make the play, and maybe you're up 4-1, and things are a lot different. So, 6-2 game kind of got away from them, but overall, I don't think they played that poorly tonight. I think the 7th inning really, obviously, bottom of the 7th was kind of just crushing, and then obviously they put the game away in the 8th. Mariners bullpen just didn't have it tonight, but I thought they played pretty well for 6 innings, 7 or 6.5 innings. They just couldn't finish it, and that's just where the Mariners are right now. They're not, well, aside from the last 2 in Boston, they're not getting blown out, and when they're losing, you can kind of trace the reasons why they lost to 1 or 2 plays that they didn't make, or 1 or 2 balls that just didn't quite do what they needed to do, and that's what makes it really frustrating right now. But we'll see how this weekend goes. But to me, I think you need to move Teoscar up the lineup. I think you need to consider Tom Murphy DHing a little bit more, Colton Wong DHing a little bit more, Taylor Trammell. I don't want him in the lineup every single day. I don't trust him right now. And I think you just kind of go from there, and you hope that Kelnick's close to making that adjustment. Again, pretty good day today. But you kind of want to get him going. Same with Julio. Pretty good day today. So, Cal Raleigh just missed his 2nd hit by literal a foot. So I think you could see some of the pieces here that are starting to kind of get back into shape, but it's still frustrating while we wait for it to finally click. But I think you can help that process along by just move Teo up to 5, at least 5 or 6 at the very least. Get him a few more at bats.
All right. Well, on that note, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners postgame show. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez. That's TANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well over at Locked On Mariners. That's one word, Locked On Mariners. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Again, you can catch the Mariners and the Braves the next 2 days on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. And thank you again for making us your first listen after today's game. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day and a beautiful baseball weekend, and we'll see you next time. Peace.